Hello, my name is Nupur Shah, and today the topic which I will cover is prolapsed intervertebral disc. So we will cover especially the lumbar area. Coming on to introduction, there is not even a single person who doesn't experience low back pain ever in his life. Because of any reason, it is very common to experience some low back pain in some point of our lives, and it is usually that is the prolapse is not usually a one-time phenomenon. It undergoes a sequence of changes within the vertebral body, and in the end the threshold is lost and it ends up in the prolapse. And it starts with the degeneration, and slowly the degeneration intensifies, the rate of degeneration progresses further, and at the end it turns up into the prolapse intervertebral disc. So the onset of the age is approximately 35 to 55 years, but it can occur at any age. If it is not treated properly, then the chances of recurrence are very high. Once the patient has got this episode of the prolapse intervertebral disc, then it is necessary to do the exercises regularly. It is also necessary to meet the therapist once in 3 months for regular follow up, and so that the therapist will check again and he will modify the exercises, or he will modify the ergonomic advice as per the occupation, whatever is needed. So patient has to be self disciplined, and he has to exercise whatever protocol is given to him. He has to follow it regularly in his everyday life throughout the life. Otherwise the chances of recurrence will be more. So going on with the introduction, PIBD is the collective term which describes the rupture of the annular fibers that allows the displacement of the nucleus pulposus. We all know that there are two parts which are contained within the disc. One is the nucleus pulposus and the other is the annulus fibrosus. And if the displacement is known as PIBD, displacement is mostly in the posterior or posterolateral direction. They say that in the lumbar area, especially the annular fibrosis, in the annular fibers in the posterior lateral direction are weak enough. So the posterior in the posterior lateral direction, the bulge is very common. And if the other type of displacement occurs, that is in the posterior direction, then the chances of cord compression will increase. Spinal cord compression will occur in the posterior bulge, and there are various stages that is present. That is the sequence. The first stage is the stage of nucleus degeneration, which is followed by the stage of nuclear displacement, and the last is the stage of fibrosis. Under the stage of nuclear displacement, there is protrusion, extrusion, and sequestration. So initially there is only the bulge of the disc, followed by herniation, means the bulge will further increase, and in the last stage the part of the bulge will dislodge and it will have no connection with the original disc. So that is the stage of sequestration. And the last will be fibrosis. So PIVD will cause radicular pain in most of the cases, and the clinical manifestations will depend on the nerve root which is involved. So this is the picture. On the left hand side you can see the normal picture of the vertebrae including the disc, and in the right hand side you can see there is the bulge in the posterior lateral direction. So what are the causes? Causes, it includes heavy manual labor. Suppose for example if the patient is working in the factory which consists of lifting heavy load in day to day activity or in day to day basis for long period of time, he is working at this place, say for example, then it is very much it is very much common to get this type of prolapse because he will be suffering from repetitive strain injury. There are some kind of micro traumas will be happening every day in the disc, and one day the disc will bulge out and herniate. Then postural stress, repetitive lifting and twisting, either in the activities of daily living or either in the occupation. Then obesity, poor strength of the trunk, sitting for long hours in bad posture, and if the patient doesn't take a break in between while sitting for long hours, then also this problem is very common because the axial loading will be constant on the disc, and the patient has to relieve that tension by getting up from the chair and moving around in the office, and then doing some normal general stretches of the back, and then continuing the work again. And he has to do this every hour or every 1.5 hours in order to relieve the stress on the disc. Then age, obviously as the age increases, the problem of getting the disc prolapse will be more because there will be dehydration and the height of the disc will decrease, and so the disc will not have enough shock absorbing capacity like before. Hence as the age increases, the problem of having this disorder increases. the chances will increase. The other causes are OA of the spine, which is known as lumbar spondylosis. If the rate of degeneration of the spine or the vertebral bodies is more, then also this problem will happen. Then weak muscles, obesity, as we discussed, I repeated it by mistake. Then stress, unequal leg length. Obviously, unequal leg length will have asymmetry at the pelvis, which in turn will affect the lumbar spine, and the load on the lumbar spine will increase because of this problem in the alignment of the lower body and the pelvis. Then IV disc problems means any previous history of IV disc problems, and stenosis, that is the compression of the spinal canal or the vertebral foramen. Features, clinical features, it will be, there will be severe low back pain in the patient. Then it will have mostly it will have radiating pain. Then pain aggravates during coughing, straining or laughing, because the discal pressure will increase while doing this activity. Then loss of bladder control. Then muscle spasm, muscle weakness or atrophy in the later stages. Then Valsalva maneuver increases the symptoms, and pain increased during flexion and reduced during extension. So normally there is extension bias. So when we stand in the anatomical position, okay, and then we bend the spine, or we do forward flexion, then the spinous process will go away from each other, and there are high chances for the discs to come out in that position. So flexion will in turn increase the pain, and extension, when we do extension while standing in the normal anatomical position and then we do extension, at that time the spinous processes will approximate, and chances of the bulge to get inside will increase. So this is known as extension bias, means extension of the lumbar spine, or backward bending of the lumbar spine will reduce the pain. And if it is flexion bias, then forward flexion will reduce the pain. That is known as flexion bias and extension bias. So moving forward with the clinical features, there is tenderness on the back muscles or spinous process, that needs to be palpated. Then reflexes are absent or diminished based on which nerve root is involved. And sensory deficits can be seen. We had discussed previously about radiculopathy. So radiculopathy can be seen in the chronic conditions, and reduced back muscle endurance. Clinical features based on the levels. So this is based on the dermatomes. So if the prolapse is between T12 and N1, then the nerve root which is compressed will be L1, and paresthesia is seen in the proximal third of the thigh at anterior part. If the level is L1, L2, then L2 is compressed, L2 nerve root is compressed, and the paresthesia will be seen in the middle part of the thigh anteriorly. So this is based on the dermatomes, like I said. Uh, so accordingly, we can do it for the myotomes also, that as per the myotomes, what will be the clinical features. Then if it is L2, L3, then the altered sensation will be present in the anterior thigh, little distally. And L3, for L3, L4 level, the L4 nerve root will be compressed, and paresthesia will be medial to the shin of the tibia and medial aspect of the foot. If it is L4, L5, L5 nerve root will be compressing, and the paresthesia will be at the lateral leg, dorsum of the foot and first web space. And if it is L5, S1, then the compression will be at S1 nerve root will be getting compressed, and the posterior part of the thigh, calf muscles, and lateral aspect of the foot and the ankle will have altered sensation, and even the sole. So diagnosis, they usually do with the X-ray. In X-ray, we are not able to see the disc, but we are able to see the vertebral bodies. And if the vertebral bodies we see compression, or we see compression between the two, that is, if there is reduction of the disc space between the two vertebral bodies, then we can make out that the disc is at fault, and we can see even the other degenerative changes in the X-ray, that is abnormal bone growth, extra bone growth, which is known as osteophytes. So we can make out that disc is at fault just by looking at X-ray, even if the disc is not seen. And if you want to check out the disc, we can go for MRI and CT scan. But MRI is not the gold standard method to rule out the problem of the disc. Say for example, if we take MRI of approximately 30 people for lumbar spine, then there are chances that out of those 30, 5 or 6 may be having the bulge as per the report. But in actually when we test them, like clinically when we take their assessment, there won't be any correlations. Means assessment will be normal enough, and we won't be able to correlate that MRI report with our assessment. So it is very very important to trust the clinical assessment which we do in the OPD, because MRI is not gold standard, and the report of the MRI, even if it is showing the bulge, that doesn't mean that the patient is actually suffering from the disc problem only. Okay, then discography is considered the gold standard method of diagnosis IVDP. And special tests, two of them we do, that is SLR and slump test. Differential diagnosis, coming on to the spondylosis, lumbar spondylosis, there is a reduced range of motion at the lumbar spine and pain during the movement. And in stenosis, there is loss of the lordosis and intermittent claudication. And the intermittent claudication will increase as the condition worsens, because the stenosis doesn't have any treatment as such, and the age will also be more usually. So intermittent claudication has to be the differentiating factor, that this is the stenosis and not the IVDP problem, that is intervertebral disc problem. Then lumbar fracture. Here we can say that a reduced range of motion and pain during the movement will also be there during a disc problem, and it is necessary that spondylosis, that is the lumbar degeneration, along with the disc problem, both are there at the same time. So it is not necessary that we will see only the disc problem alone, or we will see lumbar spondylosis alone. We saw in lumbar spondylosis that it is the vague term, and it consists of the discal problems also, because it is degenerative disease. Then lumbar fracture, it will be easy to diagnose, because the pain will be very very severe, more than that of the patient with disc problem, and the pain will be constant. Not even a single position will be comfortable to the patient, and he will be having ease with not even a single position, and the pain will be more severe. Even analgesics don't work at that particular time, the basic analgesics, and X-ray will reveal the lumbar fracture. And piriformis syndrome, pain will be there in the gluteal region, back of the thigh. When we do the piriformis stretch, at that time the pain will be there, and there will not be lumbar pain. So that is the differentiating point. And pain is usually at the gluteal region and back of the thigh. The radiating pain is usually till the back of the thigh. It is possible that sciatic nerve is getting compressed under the piriformis muscle, and it is giving the radiating pain throughout the leg, but there is no problem in the lumbar spine, so we have to rule out that. If the piriformis muscle is involved, then we have to take the patient in prone position, and we have to do internal rotation. On one side, the internal rotation is restricted, that means the piriformis muscle is tight. And even the stretch will give a positive result for piriformis syndrome. Then differential diagnosis for spinal tumor, obviously the pain will be more, there will be sleep disturbance, patient will not be able to sleep at all at night because of the continuous pain. And again there will be continuous pain, means throughout the day the patient will be having pain. So it is considered a red flag if there is continuous pain. If it is a mechanical pain or a discal pain or discogenic pain, then the patient will have some ease during the day, some movements will provide him relief. So it is not necessary that the disc pain will be throughout continuously. So we have to assess accordingly and rule out the red flags during the assessment. For ruling out the hip pathology, we have different tests, such as SLR will be negative, Faber's test will be positive, and there will be no lumbosacral pain if there is a hip pathology, hip joint pathology. Management will include three things, that is rest, but it is advised that the patient should not do complete bed rest. If there is subacute pain, or if the pain is, say for example, VAS is around 5 or 6, moderate level VAS scale in the visual analog scale, it is around 5 or 6, then it is advised that complete bed rest should not be given, because that will further increase the pain as per the research. Some amount of activity should be reduced, but not complete bed rest. Complete bed rest is contraindicated in the low back pain patients. Reduction has to be done or removal. So these were the three methods of treatment. Rest, traction can be given, reduce the activity, and spinal corset can be given. Spinal corset has to be worn for few hours or when the patient is going out or while working at home or the office, and especially while sitting for long hours. Otherwise, spinal corset is not required, because if it is worn throughout the day, then it will end up in wasting of the muscles around the lumbar spine. Reduction, the again traction has to be given for 2 weeks, and epidural injections of corticosteroids also they prefer. Removal of the disc. So, what are the indications for surgical removal of the disc? That is cauda equina lesion, persistent pain, signs of the sciatic nerve tension after 3 weeks of conservative treatment. Means if the conservative treatment is not working, then only the surgery is advised, otherwise not. And neurological deterioration means if the radiculopathy or the radiating pain symptoms are worsening day by day, then in the end they prefer surgery. Drug treatment will be diazepam, paracetamol, NSAIDs. Basic level drugs is to be given. So the doctor usually prefers to give this, followed by physiotherapy management. So the physiotherapy management we'll cover in the next part of the class, next video. Thank you.